Hi, I'm Toni Black, and welcome to Living Out Loud. In this video series, we're talking about ways to unshackle your potential, unleash your passion, and become your own hero. One thing that I absolutely love about our next guest is that she lives and breathes what it means to live an authentic life. Fueled by her life's purpose, she has experienced the journey of transforming from depressed and weak to full of life and strong. Sorry. She's an acclaimed author, motivational speaker, coach, and leader in the art and science of life transformation. She's documented her decade-long multifaceted journey of change in the award-winning novel, The Real Brass Ring, and has garnered the attention of national media through her fearless expression and practical model of how women and men can show up in their own lives personally, professionally, and passionately. Welcome, Dianne Bischoff James.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is really exciting.
I'm so glad you're here and you're joining us today. And I know that so many of us are going to get a lot out of this interview today. So, can you tell us about your hero's quest in your book? Like in your book, The Real Brass Ring, Change Your Life Course Now. It's truly an incredible story. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that and what your hero's journey has really been like.
Absolutely. Well, I had what I thought was a perfect life until almost 40. I was about 38 years old, and I had everything that you were supposed to get. You know, that was the mini mansion. I had my own business. I had the 3 kids and everything in the world going on in the form of the American dream, trying to get all the stuff, trying to get all the possessions, trying to be successful, and had the education, the whole thing. And I realized after this fateful encounter with Sonia Choquette, who right now is a world-renowned psychic and leader in personal development, and I had a reading with her, and she said to me at that point of time that everything was wrong. I had the wrong career, wrong passion, wrong guy, wrong location, wrong everything. So after I built up my entire life towards getting what you're supposed to get, you know, think of that wonderful model like the Kardashian model where you get all the ring and the bling and the latest shoes and the cutest purse and the cutest car. All of that came crashing down that day because I realized that I was 100% off track. So when it comes to the hero's journey,
did you feel like you were off track, or was
I
it?
was 190 pounds at the time, so I think my body was reflecting it more so in that I was also very depressed and taking Prozac every day. So I think I was having all the symptoms internally, but I was so into repressing it and ignoring the signs that I don't know if I was aware of it from a cognitive perspective, but I was definitely aware of it from the body, from the physical being. And so that was my wake-up call. That was my, hitting rock bottom and having someone say, hey, smack you upside the head. How can you do everything wrong for almost 40 years when you thought you were doing everything right? And so that's actually where the journey started. So it's funny when you say hero's journey, I don't think of it that way. I think of it more just as this giant excavation and then a huge mountain to climb of learning and education and how to put the pieces of authenticity back together. So at the end of the day, it feels a little bit more like, yeah, that was an amazing journey. Look where I came from. But it really, every day was about how to change every piece of my life and create something completely different in the shortest period of time possible. Yeah, so it's a little crazy.
It is. It's great. It's so amazing. So I would love, I know that you have some great tips for rebooting your life. And I know that this is something that you talk about quite often, right?
Yeah. Well, what happened is it was great to have somebody. Well, it wasn't so great at the time. Actually, it bothered me terribly. But when I heard that my entire life was off track, first of all, I got angry, like all the regular steps. Then I wanted to, strangle the messenger. And then I got sad because I was like, what do you do with that? And then I became very practical. And I'm like, okay, so people can tell you these messages, but there's no prescription now for fixing it. Right. What do you do to change your life? How do you go about changing careers? She said, become an actor, an author, a teacher, and a healer, and in that order. And none of that was going on in my life at the time. So that was a tall order. How do you go from being like
Yeah.
a business marketing exec to being an actor and then an author and a teacher and a healer, all of which are very, they're kind of challenging in their own rights, and that they're all their own career paths. So anyway, so what I did is I wrote down the 14 shortcuts for happy living. That was my model. That was my platform for how to change and how to do it in a way where everybody could understand it. And so the 14 shortcuts for happy living for me is where it was a foundational work that started everything. And I live with it every day. I go back and try to use the 14 shortcuts, not only to help me on a daily basis, because they're all about these practical tools and lessons that you can use to transform, even if you don't feel like it, even if it's not the right moment, even if you're having one of those bad cranky days. You can go back to one of the rules and look at them almost like, oh, here's a reminder. Here's something I can do to make everything better. So that became something that's foundational. It's also something I work with my clients on every day. And the 14 rules are the first step towards vibrational shifting.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So what is the most transformational thing that you have witnessed as a result of these 14 shortcuts?
Well, one of the most transformational things, and I'll just bring up one of the shortcuts as an example. One of them is about staying in your own circle. And what I have found is that, and especially with a lot of the clients that I work with, I will have people come to me from all over the country and they say, hey, I want to change this in my life. My relationship isn't super strong, or, I'm looking for a new career, or some people come and they want to lose weight, because I was very fortunate. I was able to lose 60 pounds and keep it off for over 10 years. I became an actor, and now I do mostly just film and television commercials. I was able to change my career. I tour, and I was able to do all those things. But people come to me and say, I just want to change. So they think it's like a one-step process, and it really isn't. It is something that I think always has to come from the inside out. So one of the very first places I have people start to look at is what is called your alignment. And so we always start with mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical alignment. And I have this amazing process that I put everyone through, where they answer key questions. And I'll give you a few examples. On the physical side, people think that is, just about your body, but it's not. Physical, if you're looking at that piece, are you really in integrity with yourself on a physical plane, which means we know if we're working out. Everyone has to come clean in that area. So some people will say, yeah, you know what, I was really good for a while, but I haven't done anything in about a year. Well, okay, that's some area where you got to work on. And then we look at the physical plane from multiple aspects. And on the mental plane, people will really misunderstand that sometimes. The mental plane is really where you're involved on the daily basis with not only your work, what you're thinking about, but how you're spending your time. So a lot of times that comes forward in the way of a job. Sometimes it could be in just a passion area. So the mental plane is a very more of a complicated one, but people will evaluate themselves. And this is what I love. It's almost like going to the Olympics, because we have, the Olympics going on. And so you get to hold up a little card for yourself, and you'd say, okay, how much of what you're doing during the day could you say that you love doing? And you get to raise your own card up and say, is that a 10? Is that a 9? Is that a 2? How much of the job that you're doing do you truly love? And again, you get to rate it. So I use a lot of both Eastern and Western. So there's a lot of left and right brain. So we get to measure it, and then we get to look at the core cause. So we look at mental, emotional, spiritual, physical for alignment. And in a perfect world, in the ideal setting, all 4 of those are working in this beautiful, harmonious fashion. And they're all on the super highest level. So I like to say in each category, if you can rate yourself as a 9 or 8 and above, sometimes we go to an 8 and above, then you really have a life where it feels amazing, because that kind of resonates in all of the 4 key areas. So that's one of the most core, the core place where we start is to look at where you are in your own alignment, look at the key important questions, and to look at how you evaluate yourself, because at the end of the day, as I'm sure you know, and as the audience knows, we are the judge and the jury. So if we pass, let's say, have a bad night, step out on the wrong side of the curb, and I die tonight, let's just say, and I go to the other side, and we're looking there, and you meet whoever wonderful person comes to meet you. It could be a relative, or it could be, just a spiritual being. It could be your guides. And they're going to probably only ask you one question. That's the way I think. And the question is, did you love your life? Did you pursue your gifts? Did you execute to the best of your ability on your own plan? And did you contribute and give back? And in some of those key areas, that's where I have the greatest sense of joy and fun and fulfillment, is when we all talk about the important things. Like, who's evaluating this? Well, you are. Well, how are you doing? And how are you matching up with your own path? Because according to the study of the Akashic Records supposedly come from this understanding and practice that we wrote our own journal. It's like we wrote our own little story on the other side. We have an award-winning novel on the other side that said, this is what I came to do. These are the challenges I was going to go through. This is how I was going to overcome them. And this is how I'm going to evolve and progress. So I always like to look at things from that perspective and say, how are you doing on your journey? And if the answer is, I don't know what journey you're talking about, well, then you have some work to do there. Or if the answer might be not what I should be doing, then there's an opportunity for growth as well. Or if it's that, I'm rocking on, then good for you. And just keep empowering yourself and sharing that with others. So that's the part that's the most fun about this kind of work, is that I think we're all helping each other evolve. And that's the part that just gets me super excited every day.
I love that we're all helping each other evolve. That is just like super, that's huge. That's one of the reasons why I know I'm getting into this work. And I know that a lot of women are stepping into like entrepreneurship and I see this, they're helping each other out. And, it's really interesting to see this like economic flow that's happening from like within this community as well. And it's like, it is absolutely.
It is. And it's happening very quickly.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly. So I love seeing how fast these concepts are being adopted, where before there used to be some pushback. And now I'm having people from business settings, which is wonderful. More of the traditional business world say, you know what? The reason I'm not progressing in my career is because on the inside, I'm just not fulfilled. And so they're starting to look at everything from the inside out. And that is the trick. And that's the key. The reason that we have what we have, or we don't have what we would like, is all because of what we're able to manifest, as I'm sure you know, from our internal sources. And from whatever is stopping us, usually is a little blip on the radar screen that happened early on in childhood, because we were programmed and scripted to have these challenges. So anything that happened from an authority figure, could have been mom, could have been dad, could have been teacher, or could have just been an older kid or someone that you encountered in school. And whatever happened that didn't meet your needs at a higher level, so they say like a trauma 3, it gets stuck in the body. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to either fight against it or try to prove that it's right, and all of that subconscious. And so when people say, I don't have the success that I'd like, or I don't have the money that I'd like, or I don't have, I just don't have the joy in my relationship that I'd like, it is really all coming from the internal resonance to the outside. And just a quick story. I had only one person that I've talked to over the last maybe 4 years, and we do this very deep work with everybody. And most people will rate themselves on their mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. They'll have a couple of levels that are high and a couple of areas that are a little lower. And that's just probably normal. Two are easy, 2 are tough, 2 are working on. And I had one woman come to me, and I was in Milwaukee, and she was just absolutely stunning in that she was an older woman, but she just had that glow. And she sat down and she wanted to talk to me, and she wanted to go through this, she wanted to go through the life reboot process. And I said, so how are you doing mentally? And she's like, oh, I just give back to the community and I love it. And that's all I'm doing now. And that's a 10. And she goes, how are you doing emotionally? And she said, oh, I'm spending time with my family and my grandchildren, and I spend time with my charities. And she said, and I'm just loving it. I'm like, great. And then physically, she goes, oh, I do my little workout, my exercise every day. And she said, by the way, I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I said, that's amazing. And so she's doing everything she can to keep her physical body well. And then spiritually, and she said, but since my, my journey, she said, I have opened up to my spiritual self. And she goes, I feel like, for her, it was God. Everyone has a different way of calling it. But for her, that was a strong part of her life. And I said, I feel like you're the first person I met that gave yourself to 10 in all areas.
Yeah.
But when you look at what she was talking about, what she said is she lived in gratitude, because she had the ultimate wake-up call.
Mm. Yeah.
She had the opportunity to come back and look at her life and say, look, what's really important were my intimate relationships. And so she studied, and she did her own research, and she went back and worked on her relationships with her own children. Her daughter was actually at the event, and she said, my mom's like a different person. So she repaired some relationships she had. Mm. She spent all of her time feeling good from the inside out. And so she was kind of like a little Yoda in a way. She was like, she's like, I'm just really here to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, this is just amazing. You're like my beautiful, resonating example of how keeping it simple, keeping it loving, keeping it good, keeping it sweet, and keeping it about our relationships and enhancing those. And then she, so far, out of all the years I've been doing this, was the happiest person I have actually really witnessed, because the rest of us are going through our journey, and we're all trying to change and grow. But she had arrived. It was absolutely magnificent. I just feel honored to, I really have met her. So that's just one example of somebody who's really, I think, self-actualized.
That is amazing. I love stories like that. And the fact that she was just living life in gratitude, that is something that is absolutely like we all, I know that I personally find myself kind of like, whenever I find myself grumbling about something, it's like, let's put it back to gratitude and see what happens. And yeah, and I love that you mentioned that it's all about the relationships too. I know that there was a study about this there's a little community of people that are somewhere in Pennsylvania. And it's a small Italian community where, it's not necessarily all about the diet, they're eating whatever, but it's the connections with the family and the community that's keeping these people healthy, and they're living for a really long time. So it's like, there really is something to that.
And they did a study. It was with a group from Harvard, actually. And they did the longest study on happiness ever. And it just came out about a year ago. And regardless of the wealth, regardless of possessions, or size of family, size of home, or success in career, the final result of the study showed that the people that were the happiest had strong, committed, dedicated, loving relationships. And that's whether they were, and quite a few of them were very successful, because these were people who had some exposure to Harvard, so you would expect them to probably have big careers. And some of these people were moderately successful, and some of them were not very successful. From a financial perspective, that would be success as in traditional business. But the ones who were most successful from this perspective of joy and having a happy life, those are the ones that had the more long-term committed, but truly appreciative of their relationships and nurtured their relationships. So it was really an interesting study, and it's one of the ones that just came out. And to me, that kind of says it all, because at the end of the day, the only thing we have truly that we carry on with us, I do believe, is our relationships, the love that you're allowed to express and share. And if, God forbid, if anything should happen to us and our power goes out, let's say a big EMP goes off and we're all without power now for 6 months or a year, what's going to happen is we're going to go back to finding that these relationships are super important. And I think, we're going to have quite the rude awakening as to how electronics have, in some ways, taken us away from the truth and the reality of what these relationships were intended to be. I'm sure, and I don't mean we could go on about this for like an hour, but
I know I think that this topic is fascinating.
Yeah, but after a while, if you're on that electronics too much, you have a relationship with the electronics and not with the person.
No. I was just caressing my computer.
Yeah. That was good. That was good. Like, oh yeah.
I was just having a relationship with it. Yeah, it's funny because I actually came from an educational technology background where I was teaching technology to teachers and children. And the one thing I came away with was, we've got to get off these computers.
Oh, isn't that funny? So that was your conclusion.
Yeah, I got my master's degree in this. I thought, yeah, this is where I want to be. This is really interesting. This is where the future is. And I was like, where the future is throwing our kids in some trees and letting them play. So yeah, it's really.
Oh, isn't that so funny?
Yeah.
That was so funny. No, I feel we're going to probably we've gone all the way from one end. Now we're all the way at the other end. I feel like we're going to probably meet somewhere back in the middle. Usually that's what happens, where we'll be able to find that the quality and the depth of relationships come from, not that you can't have a relationship with someone online, but I do feel like the FaceTime, the actual, and I'm not talking like FaceTime, like in, you know what I mean, like in Facebook, but I'm talking actual, as they call it actually in the military, they used to require that you have a certain number of hours of FaceTime. And I didn't understand it when someone was first explaining that to me, but later on, I started adopting that in the different jobs I had. And what I found is that in-person energetic relationship is so much more reinforced when you put some time towards it in person versus keeping everything just obviously sending a one-way note or even just doing some of the video formatting or whatever. There's just a different energetic bond. And it is, people usually are reported that they get higher marks for their scores for what they're doing. People like you better. People, they get you, they feel you, because they are actually feeling you and they feel your energy. And right. So that's something I think we're going to come all the way back to that. I think we're going to get back to here's the crazy. I think we're going to get back to in-person events.
Yeah.
Because, we went from the dinner parties and all that, where people used to always have every week, you'd be invited to a party. And now it seems like we've really moved away from that so much, where I don't know whether we're just over programmed and tired, but I hope we get back to that, because that was the time when I think people were a little closer. They felt more of a heartfelt connection.
Absolutely. I know. And it's not just, some people are like, that's just woo, when you can feel somebody and enter a room. It's not just woo. It's like, we are energetic beings. That's the way that we roll. And so, yeah, it's really, it is like, and I know that being a teacher, I walk into a room, I can feel the energy of those kids.
Oh, I bet you can.
If you've ever had children, you know what that's like. To feel the energy of children. And and they don't even have to say anything, and you just know what kind of day it's going to be.
And that's one of the 14 shortcuts, actually, is about managing your wave. Because we're beings of light, and light moves, in a sine wave. Mm-hmm. And so tying in with that as well, we have the ability and the opportunity to manage that wave all the time. So I've had some people come to me and they're saying, I'm depressed, or I'm feeling really bad about the situation. And what happens is your wave gets really low and long and sloping, and it's, if this is the middle line, it kind of dips below. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, anything below that line makes it extremely difficult to manifest. So if we want to say, okay, I'm really feeling super bad and depressed, which I've had some clients come and say, and then they say, but I want to get more money and I want a better job. And I'm saying, well, let's look at where you are today. Let's look at how you can manage your own wave so you can at least get on the line, which is right up here, like we all have. Something good happens, like today, 2 or 3 amazing things happen I could never have anticipated, and then a couple things happen where, oops, I sent something out with a typo, or whatever it might be, whatever little things go, you know how it is. And I'm like, forgiveness. That's what I'm like, whatever. So so you go in and out of this up and down. That's normal. That's what a sine wave does anyway. But the challenge is people think that when they're below the line, that you can all of a sudden craft your bag of $1 million that shows up at your doorstep. And it doesn't work like that. It's really difficult to craft from below the line. And so one of the 14 shortcuts is about how to manage your wave and how to always make sure that you're neutral to positive. So getting up there saying, okay, well, so I did a typo. let's say I did a typo today, which I did.
Okay.
And I thought about it later, and I'm going, oh, did I put in the right year? I was thinking to myself, did I put in the right year? And then I literally just said, you know what? I celebrate my humanity. We're going to let this go. If somebody wants to catch it, God bless them. And so just kind of like, and I just said, being imperfectly perfect is exactly who I am. And I'm going to not judge myself. So we kind of tossed it off, and I felt a million times better. So those are the types of things where you always have the opportunity to reach for a thought that feels better. Every single situation that occurs has another side of it that either we're not looking at, or if you go 10,000 feet up, you can see it later as to, oh, wait, maybe all this discomfort is creating something for me, so I move on. Or, so if you look at everything that's happening and the thought that feels better, there's invariably a way to make yourself feel at peace or neutral to positive about anything. And I'm talking anything. I've had it where my daughter came in one day and we were sitting on the couch, and I thought she'd been gone for a while, and then she came back in the door and she just stood there, and I look at her like, what? You do that, like, what? And she was 16, and she's like, how much does it cost to fix the car? I'm like,
what are we talking about here?
What are we talking? Yeah, I'm like, fix the car. I said, you didn't even leave the driveway, did you? She goes, well, I kind of hit the post next to the house. She was a new driver. She was backing out. She did not back out straight. And she hit the post. So she starts crying and she gets all upset. And I said, okay. And I thought she'd already been somewhere in back. I didn't even know she was standing outside trying to think about how she was going to position this. So I said, well, here's the good news. You're not hurt. Nobody else got hit. And that was your one and only accident, and you're done with it now. So everyone gets one. Everybody gets that free pass. You just had yours. So consider that to be your first and final accident. And now let me tell you how it works. It's called insurance.
It's called insurance. And that's why we have it, and that's why we pay for it.
And the deductible is called your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And that's the part of your integrity that you're going to have to stand up to. So you're going to have to look at how you're going to make that whatever $350 deductible, and that's going to cost about $5,000. So, and then she starts to really start to cry. I said, but we don't pay that part. Thank God. That's what insurance is all about. So, so it was one of those things where it was, nobody got hurt. It was over.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. And I think those types of situations when you can handle it with that kind of
love
and just compassion and not freaking out and creating this emotional like tirade, and just keeping your emotions in the neutral to positive category. So she didn't have a great day, but she also didn't have what she was expecting, which was anger, and she didn't have, she didn't get punished. It was an accident. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's just an example where you could always find the positive upside of it.
Yes. Yeah. And bring yourself up. I know one thing that I constantly am choosing to do is meet those situations with, okay, we're going to bring this up. I'm going to meet it with love, and then we're going to move on from here. So yeah, it's really interesting.
So I know we're working on this all the time. All of us are.
Always. Yes. It's daily practice.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
So again, the special gift that you have for our viewers today is
we have the 14 shortcuts for happy living, and you can get that by going on my website, which is Dianne.net, DIANNE.net, and you can get it that way, or there's a link that you're going to be able to share. And also the book is called The Real Brass Ring. And it's available on Amazon. It's available on BarnesandNoble.com. And I'm very blessed and lucky. I've had over 107 5-star reviews on Amazon for the book. So it's a crazy journey. It's about how do you change everything? How do you walk through the steps? How do you apply these 14 shortcuts? And then it's a lot like Eat, Pray, Love, but I didn't get to go to an ashram and sit and chill. I had to raise 3 kids. I had to go through a healthy divorce. I had to figure out how to be an actor. I had to lose all the weight, recraft the career. And how do you do that? How do you do all that and keep all the balls in the air and do it, as you said, with love and with a lot of, as much grace as I could muster at the time. And so that's the fun part about it, that it's the wild and crazy. It's kind of a little bit like All My Children. You know, I used to love that show. I'm not dating myself, but it was the soap opera that went on for what?
Days of our lives.
30 years of that. Yeah. General Hospital, all the great ones. So it's a little bit like that. We're always like, oh, what's going to happen next? I know.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun to chat with you. And I really look forward to doing it again sometime.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Love it. And I also want to thank all of you viewers for checking us out. And don't forget to check out all of the other videos here in the Living Out Loud series. And until I see you again, keep living out loud.